Hello everyone, it's Christine here and I am back for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, and we've received the February prompt, which is to create a wearable piece of slow stitch. Now it might be a piece of clothing or embellishing an existing piece of clothing, could be jewellery, but I had one initial idea jump into my head followed by many other ideas, but it's a really simple and probably won't be too time consuming, and it's to create a little bracelet pincushion. So a pin cushion that can sit on the wrist when you're working away, and you can just pop your needle into it. I'm really bad about getting my needle back into the pin cushion that sits a bit further away. And when I'm working in the car on something, it'd be good to have something that I can put my needle into, because otherwise I tend to poke it into the work, but that's sometimes not all that good. So it's something I don't have. It's something that will definitely be useful to me. And I thought I can incorporate some vintage embroideries. I can incorporate a bit of the thinking that I was using recently to make my slow stitch vintage style buttons. And I can use, some existing supplies that were readily at hand, including some orts. And you might have seen recently I've been having lots of fun with ort balls as well. So without further ado, I will get into it. Feel free to kind of follow along. It's not something I've done before, so it'll be a little bit experimental, but I've got a bit of an idea and I will share what I learn along the way. So I think I am going to use a jar lid as the base of my pincushion. I don't want to have a risk of things going through to my skin, particularly if I'm in the car and something jerks or jolts. I want to make sure there's a pretty solid protector of my wrist. But I don't want to have the pins or the needles going through and tapping on the metal. So I'm thinking I will put some little felt rounds in the bottom, and all I did to get these rounds, and I think I actually need a few more anyway, so let me do a few with you. I'm going to grab my friction marker, which erases with heat, but this doesn't actually matter because we're not really going to see the markings anyway. So I'm just going to draw a couple of these onto the felt. So I think I will need at least a few more circles. The lid is one of those ones that does that sort of clicking when you tap it, but I don't think that will be a problem. So we'll just quickly cut out. So I'm just cutting around the edge, although if you want it a bit smaller, you can always cut inside, but I think around the edge will work for now, and then we can always cut it down if we need. And I just thought that would be a good small size and something that I can have on my wrist that won't be too obtrusive, but it's really just to use in my craft room or when I'm crafting on the go. So I'm very much into a phase at the moment where I've got all these ideas for really useful things to make. So it's ending up being quite a practical year, but useful, and also using things that are sort of either readily available or sort of scraps or things like orts. I'm trying to use things in my stash or things that I'm creating through the process of creating other things. So what I'm going to do is push my little felt circles down in and let them form a base in the bottom of my jar lid. So I've got 2 in there, and I think I'll put just a third one in if it will go. And this one I might even just give a little trim just so that it will sit a bit more easily in there, hopefully. I'd ideally not want to use any glue for this because I want it just to be the sort of the felt layer. I'm not worried if it's sort of puckering up a little bit. What I'm then thinking I'm going to do is use some of my orts, and these are just some orts I got recently created when I was tearing some beautiful blue fabrics for my next prompt in the Colour Inspirations journal. So I've got to get that filmed as well, but I was just preparing some fabric so we can get stuck into some fun things for that. But I've got a lot of lovely blues and creams here. Doesn't really matter, we're not going to be seeing the orts in this application, they just happen to be what was on top. And then I'm thinking I would want to use a layer of felt over the top. Let me just show you the sort of concept, and then we'll have a go at putting the concept together. So something like that, a bit of an ort and a felt layer cake. And then I'm thinking I can take a vintage piece of embroidery and I can shape myself, a bit similar to the covered buttons as I mentioned, shape myself a little pincushion, but using this beautiful piece of vintage embroidery as the decoration. Now, if you didn't have the vintage embroidery, you could do your own little stitchery on the top or use a pretty piece of fabric that you particularly like. But I figured I've got this vintage embroidery. I've already cut into this, this piece, and so I may as well continue to make use of it. So let's see how it would go then. Yep, it's a nice, it's firm, it's not going right down to the bottom. It's sort of got enough resistance in it. But I'm not catching the orts or anything because I've got the the protective felt layer, and I think I'll be able to, through a process of cinching it in with some thread at the back, I'll be able to get it flattish enough at the back. And then I'm thinking I'll use another covered piece of felt and stitch that onto the back, and then so we'd essentially end up with a piece of felt at the back. And then I'm thinking I'll stitch that onto this lovely piece of, vintage elastic, which has a sweet little frill on it, and this sweet little pattern. I mean, I don't think it's super vintage because it hasn't lost its elasticness, but it's got a vintage look to it. And that would give me a really nice little tight band for my wrist, but it would give it the flexibility because it's got the stretch in it to stretch over the hand when I put it on. And so I would be able to stitch that into position on the felt, and then have another covered bit of felt, and I'm thinking I can cover it with some of my little Bleu de France mini charm squares, and then stitch that on, and then the little covered felt would sit against my wrist, and that would be that. So that's the plan. Let's give it a go. We won't know if it works if we don't give it a go. I hope you're having a lovely day, even if you're not crafting along with this idea, which you might not want to in case it doesn't work. If it really doesn't work, you won't be seeing this video. I won't give you something that's a total failure. I just don't want to do that to you. Wouldn't give you even something that's a partial failure. I'll generally try and refine it if it happens not to work. Actually, maybe we'll use the cream. Because the first thing I think will be, yes, it will be to get our vintage embroidery piece sorted. So might even get my bigger needle. Someone was asking about this needle. I think it's probably like a mattress needle. It was in a big household needle sort of set, but it's probably quite good for stitching through. I'm just going to tie a knot in my thread. And so then I just need to cut this out so it's a bit easier. So cut around where I want the area, which I think will be sort of broadly around here. And as you can see, this piece of linen has stains and things on it. So yeah, and I've already cut into it. So I'm not afraid. It's good once you get going on a piece, you get very unafraid about using it. Right. So. Just checking if I want to massage this at all further, but I think it's pretty good. I think that'll be okay up the top. I probably just want to kind of shape it a little bit rounded, and then I probably might, don't know if I want to put a couple of stitches in just to hold this piece of felt in place. Maybe that would be a good idea. Don't think the knot's big enough at the end for the size of the needle. Let's just see if we can make it a smidge bigger. And then yeah, maybe I'll just put a few little stitches to hopefully hold this in place a bit. So I'm just
putting a stitch underneath, and then I'll just put another stitch down this way and underneath. And I might just come around and under. Okay, hopefully that will be enough to hold it in place, just while we kind of get the covering in place. Whether you needed to do that step, I don't know, but if it helps you, give it a go. But yeah, that's just meaning it's not jumping all around while I am doing it, and I can just sort of tuck the ends in. Then let's make sure we get our piece of embroidery up the right way. We can just have another look at it. Make sure we kind of position it where we want. And then we'll need to tie the end again on our thread. Let's just check again. I'm just going to grab one of my little needles, make sure it's still, yep, that feels good. Yep, I think there's enough protection at the bottom, and that looks really nice and tight. So while it is like that, I'm going to just pass my needle from one side to the other and hope my little knot catches. I'll just put one in close so it does. So try not to stab yourself when you're doing this. I just want to start holding it in place where I need it held. Try not to catch your fingers either with the thread, of course. It's like a little mushroom. Makes me think you could also, yeah, make some sort of a little mushroom thing with a similar technique. The lovely Susie Q has been, Susie Q makes, she's been making lovely mushrooms with hand-dyed velour. So many fun ideas out there. We have the best community for the way everyone just, yeah, shares all their lovely ideas and encourages each other too, which is the other lovely bit. Okay, so I'll just need to keep working around so I get all the bits cinched in that need to be cinched in. That's going quite well. I think at this point, now that it's sort of held in place, I can take off some of the excess fabric. Just be careful not to cut any of the threads that we've created. Keep those bits for another application. I might just go over to this side where I obviously haven't caught any stitches yet. Try not to unthread my needle. So I do hope your day's going well. It's Monday evening here. Oh, sorry, not Monday evening. It is Thursday evening. What am I saying? What am I saying? It's Friday tomorrow. Going into work, into the office tomorrow. Don't go in that often, so that's a bit exciting. Nice to catch up with some colleagues I haven't seen in a little bit. Oops, don't know if I've just, no, I haven't pulled. I thought I'd broken my thread and I was like, oh, that's not going to be fun for you to have to watch the whole process again. But I am just going to, at this point, tie off my thread because it's getting a bit short, but I think I'll need to grab another bit as well. But at least if we get it tied off, let's put an extra little knot in as well. Just to be sure. And then I'll get a bit more thread. You always underestimate how much thread you need when you're kind of cinching something in like that. So I'll just start here and put a couple of stitches over where we finished off, just to make that extra secure. And I'll trim a little bit more off, I think, because I don't need all of this bulk. Again, just being careful because the threads are sort of sitting down against the lid, so I don't want to go too low. I just want this to kind of, get as flat as possible, but doesn't have to be perfectly flat. It will just give it a bit of padding at the bottom too, which is fine. And I'll just put some more stitches in, that way for any reason the first lot of stitches gave way, I won't have a problem as I stitch it on. And I just want to catch all the parts because that bit hadn't yet been caught there. So let me know in the comments what you're making. Are you joining in the Roxy project? If you're not, you can look up Roxy Creations with Rachel and with Sarah, but Rachel's got the playlist on her channel, and there's a Facebook group as well where people share their creations. There's lots of people that don't make YouTube videos, obviously, and yeah, it's a great place just to see everyone's gorgeous work. And then there's quite a few of us on here that share our videos as we make them. It's so much fun taking part in other people's challenges. I'm really enjoying that this year. I don't feel the need to create my own because there's so many fun ones to do, and it's nice to support your stitchy buddies by doing that. I think we all get over optimistic about how much stitching we can actually get done. Although I think it was my mate Leanne saying that I've been I can't remember exactly how she described it, but I've been working away on things. So yeah, I reckon that's looking pretty nice. I might just put just a slightly bulby piece here, so I'm just going to put an extra stitch in just to help cinch that in a smidgeroo. Don't have to get sort of perfectionist, I don't think, but you want it to look nice to you. So I was toying with the idea of whether I would end up putting some trim around it, so that's still an option. I'd probably have to decide that soonish in the process, but let's just get this fully stitched down, and then we'll think about next stages. Sometimes I get excited and get beyond myself. So I'm just going to put a few stitches through the center bits also, just to hold those down, and then I'll tie this piece off, and then we can get our pieces of felt that are going to sit on the bottom here ready. Let's go out and tie it off over here maybe. Oops. Okay. There we go. So This is where I then plan to have a piece of felt, but I'm going to cover it with one of these lovely bits of Bleu de France fabric from Moda. They're just the mini charm squares. Got these nice little feathery pieces. What do I want? I want one for the bottom and I want one for the top, which we're not going to, we're not going to see a lot of them. So it probably doesn't matter too much. Sorry, I'm going through them off camera, which isn't that helpful to you. So I might even, for the one that is mostly going to be hidden, I might use that one. And then maybe one of these. Such enough in the colour scheme. I'm just seeing if there's something maybe a smidge lighter. Maybe this one. Maybe I'll take this one because in the centre it will have that bloom. So I'll take those two. And so what I need to do is cover my bits of felt. So yeah, one of them will be sitting, yep, so let's do that. I will grab my trusty Yoo-Hoo glue stick, which I do like to use for the task. And I'll put some glue onto my piece of felt. Get rid of the raggedy bits. Pop that on there, and then I'm going to cut around it. Keep my little scraps because I do have another idea for this particular project where I'll be using some quite tiny little scraps. So I think I'd have enough ideas for this particular project of wearable slow stitchery that I could probably do one almost daily, but I'll try and constrain my enthusiasm. So now I'm going to snip around, not going quite to the felt. And then I'm just going to apply a little bit more glue and fold my pieces of fabric in. And this is just to hold it, and then I can put some stitches in place as well. And if I find that the Yoo-Hoo glue is not holding it well enough, I can always try a bit of fabric glue, but I hope I'll be able to just get it. I think it does help if I have it against the table and press it that way. I probably just need to pull it in a smidgeroo more. So I might even just try using my needle and thread just to I'm just thinking now, maybe I could have that edge up this way and then that one, those two can get covered and stitched together because I'll be putting the piece of elastic between them. Just pondering here. Because if I have it that way, I think it will be a bit messy looking. I think I might be better to have it the other way. But let's just put some stitches in anyway to hold it in place. Normally I would let the glue dry, but I'm just going to do this in a single sort of filming if I can. I'm just going to kind of pick up a bit of the fabric and a bit of the felt in each of the stitches, but not going through to the front. Just work my way around a couple of times just to hold everything in place. I must admit, I do like coming up with things rather than kind of following someone else's like passion or something. I do enjoy this experimental form of crafting. And rather than kind of, pre-making something ahead of time and necessarily knowing exactly how it's going, I think it's sometimes fun to watch people as they problem solve. Hope it's fun. Hope it's not frustrating. Hope you're not yelling at the camera going, "Why are you doing that?" Hopefully not. Even though it only got up to about 22 degrees Celsius today, it's really warm upstairs tonight. Turn the aircon off because I don't like the noise being in the videos. But yeah, the sun hits this side of the house in the afternoon. So I think that will work pretty well, and we'll be putting some further stitches in anyway. So I might tie that off there. Oops, made a loop. I always tend to make a loop once in a while when I'm doing a tying off. And today is one of those days. Just move around. I'll just tack the loop down and then continue around and tie off over here instead. Just putting some knots in. There we go. Yep, okay, and then we need to get our other piece ready, which will be our bottom piece. So just get a bit of glue on to hold it in place. I just try and leave a little bit more fabric, which might make the folding over a smidge easier, so I won't trim it as much as I did the first one. I had the strangest dream last night. As best as I could work out now that it's the morning and the day after, I think I had a dream where I was sure I was awake, but I was not awake, because I had a few other weird dreams that had similar, sort of characteristics to them, but where I know for sure they are dreams. But I had this moment where I was sure I'd woken up in the night and there were lights shining through the window into the upstairs bedroom, as though someone was shining a flashlight through, and it was showing on the ceiling. And I was convinced in the moment that there was someone sort of casing the joint, as it were, like casing the joint to burgle it. And I was watching this, and I was just laying absolutely still. I don't recall like having the sense of trying to move or moving at all. And then weirdly, I feel like I went back to sleep, but I think I was actually dreaming the whole time. And then when I kind of got up in the morning, I said to Alex, anything strange happened last night around the house or anything? And everything all right downstairs? He's like, yep, fine. And so as best as I can tell, I had this dream, but was convinced that it was an awakening, but just having a dream about intruders. But then I had a few other dreams about intruders that I know to be dreams. Sorry, that sounds probably very weird. You're probably thinking, who is this crazy person talking? But they're a type of dream. I've forgotten the name. I looked them up today, and some people have them once in a while. They're not apparently a frequent type of dream. Some people have them and they can't move their body, or it feels like there's sort of a weight on them. I didn't have that sensation, but often people will have them with that sense of dread or that sense of concern about there being some foreign sort of presence. Alex was convinced this morning, when jokingly, that aliens had been. I don't think it was. I'm not afraid of aliens anyway. If they come, I'm sure they might be doing a better job than than a lot of the human races. So if they've not managed to blow themselves out or obliterate themselves, they're probably an evolved, possibly more evolved life form than some of humanity is. That's my view of aliens. But I think they might also look down at Earth and just go, "Nah, we're not dealing ourselves into that one." I hadn't even had anything weird to eat last night. I'd actually gone to bed early because I knew that I had to sort of get up a bit more early than usual on Friday, to go into work. And so I was just trying to get myself into a bit of a better sleep schedule. But maybe my brain thought, yep, we've got a bit more time to play around. Because, yeah, the particular type of dream or state happens when you're moving from REM to awake, but you stay in the REM mode but become a bit more conscious, I think. So you're kind of between the dream world and the awake world. Very interesting. The brain is an interesting beast. Dreaming's an interesting beast, I reckon. The fact that we kind of, we go to sleep and have a whole nother world there. I know a lot of people can't remember their dreams. I can often remember dreams. But I think, and I was reading that, some of these types of dreams can sometimes come when you're sort of really thinking about something, or maybe you're anxious about something. And there'd been something at work that I'd just been, problem solving through in my head. We're doing a hiring process at the moment, and I'd been, just sort of mulling over something. And I think that was kind of still playing in my brain. So these two will go together. This will be on the bottom. This one will be on the top. It will have we'll then be stitching this little piece of elastic in between the layers. It's like a little macaroon. It's very cute. And then I'll be stitching these layers together, so that will be okay, because I think it will all sort of start to meld nicely with that. I want this to be up whatever way I want it, and then it will sit on my wrist like that. I think that's going to be, I'm happy with that. Now I need to work out, I suppose I should leave a bit more elastic because I just don't know how much I'll need at the end, and even if I waste it a bit. Let's just have a think though, because I think I'll eventually want it to be sitting pretty firmly on my wrist and then coming over like that. So I think let's just put a little clip on about there. I think I probably want to put this about halfway in. So I'm going to just get myself another bit of cotton. And I will, what do I want to do actually? I'm wondering if I'll start by stitching the bottom, and then I'll stitch the other bit onto the top, and then I'll stitch them. No, actually, I think I'll do the top stitch. I'll do this bit last. I'll do this first onto the elastic, put that bit on, and then do that bit finally. I think will be easiest. But let me know if you try it in a different order, how that goes. As I say, I'm muddling along and also making knots at the end of my thread. So let's just redo our knot. So do let me know in the comments if you've ever had a dream where you thought you were awake, but you were not. So I'll put that up that way, I think, because that's this bit with the lacy bit will be the front of the bit that faces out to my hand. And so, I think that will work like that. So again, I'll just catch. Oh, what's happened there? Already got a knot. How can that be? No, we're okay. We are okay. We're cooking with gas, folks. Actually, I want it to be the other way around, don't I? Yes, because it needs to be the other way up when it comes round the wrist. So I'm going to actually have to just Skadoodle that. We will get there, folks. So yes, it needs to lay down into it like that. Always good to remember these things before you've stitched it all down. That would have been a lot more devastating. This we can just take as a little lesson. I'm sure some of you were yelling at the camera going, Christine. I mean, it looks quite nice on this side as well, so it wouldn't have been the end of the world. In fact, that might be, is that the way it's meant to go? No, I'm sure it's meant to have this other side. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. Okay, so that's up that way. Oops, nope. So I actually want to have it, again, thinking, if I want to have my little flower up that way and I want to have my little cuff going this way, then this is where I need to have it. And so here, yeah, I don't want to go through to the front because I just want to be catching just the felt and the elastic, but not going through to the very front fabric. Because the elastic's going to be sort of, yeah, stretching either side of this when I put it on the wrist, I just want to make sure there's enough good holding stitches in here, I think. Oops, I have actually managed to take a stitch through to the back. Am I worried about that or not? Where did I do that stitch, or do I just leave that as a little, I think I might just leave that as a little design feature. It's not going to, it'll just be an extra little slow stitch detail. I can always add a few more of them around if I'm worried. It's not going to be a problem. Normally I can feel when I do that, but on this occasion I didn't. Okay, so that is probably enough, I think. Maybe I'll put a couple more in this side. Maybe one or two across here. Maybe one down there. And that should be almost right, I reckon. Okay, I'll tie that off there. Hopefully you can still see okay. The sun is now going down, so I might just momentarily open my curtains. So I get the last of the good light in before I need to switch the other lights on. So yeah, I think that's good. And then we can stitch this one on. Yeah, even this side would have been quite pretty actually as the other, as the outer, so it probably didn't matter at all. But the other one's got a bit more texture to it. I quite like those trims where both sides of them are equally useful. Okay. So here we can hide the end into the fabric, and then can probably just start stitching around and anchoring the two bits together, but also attaching the top bit to the elastic. So I'm sort of just going to go into side to side through the elastic and just catching the edge of each piece. Again, if you didn't want to do the kind of invisible stitches, you could absolutely do something a bit more visible as a bit more of a slow stitchy, sketchy, sort of make it a decorative stitch. I just thought the fabrics would, yeah, particularly the fabric on the back and the elastic, they're nice and decorative enough. So I'll just do an invisible sort of style, small little nipping stitches where I'm just catching a bit of the fabric, a bit of the elastic, and going through and catching a bit of fabric on the other side. Just getting them to meld together in the process, hopefully. And because this bit's going to be stitched on anyway to the top bit, probably doesn't matter too much. Yeah, I could have done a ladder stitch, but I want to kind of be, because it's just got these little tucked edges in, this stitch will just help to hold them a bit better, I think. Oops, don't need to catch the elastic. So yeah, this is just a good way not to have any raw edges, just to fold the two bits over something else, and then you've got, yeah, you've got a non-raw edge to work with. And then if you sandwich them together like this, they become one. Three becomes one, including the elastic. Oops. Tried to become a looped around piece then. I like this. This is kind of a giant covered button. Yeah, that's going well. I can probably even actually snip this little thread here, because it was really just to hold it, yeah, hold it in place initially, and this will probably be holding it anyway, but I'm not too fussed. I say I'm not too fussed and then I keep talking about it, so maybe I am fussed, who knows. So let's just... It is going to be on the underside of the piece, so I really don't think it's something to stress about. I've been getting good use out of my little charm square packs. They're the perfect size for these sorts of small projects, and you've got those colour coordinated pieces to work with. I've also been enjoying working with a more limited colour palette. I used to always grab out all the fabrics and sort of get myself into a bit of a decision fatigue. But now, with a smaller palette, I've still got plenty of fabrics to pull out, but it just makes it a bit easier. So it was good doing that with the colour inspirations when we just started with greens. And then we added in a complementary colour, pinks, and that's what I also used for my Roxy pouch for January, that same colour scheme. And it was really good just to be a bit more limited. And so these blues are actually, yeah, what I'm going to be using for my Next Colour Inspirations prompt as well. Now I'm not worried that I put some longer stitches that you can see there, because this will be covered by the little pincushion going on top. probably actually don't need to be quite as careful as I'm being, but I'm enjoying it. Getting into that relaxed, just going round in a circle stitching, which I do enjoy. There's a little raw edge there. Let me see if I can just tuck that in a smidge more. Okay, so I think we've got a warm weekend ahead of us. I think we'll go back down to the beach with Travis. Alex has now had his bandages off, although I think the doctor, when he had them off, said no, don't go in the sea for a bit because of the sort of pathogens, but he's healed over. There's no open wound or anything where he had it, so I don't know, maybe you can still have a paddle, at least put the bather bottoms on. Travis gets a bit concerned when one of us is in the water and the other is on the sand. He kind of feels like he needs to shuttle between the two of us. Whereas if we're both in the water, he'll come out, and if he's a bit tired of swimming around, we just sort of hold him in our arms and he stops moving his legs and just, surveys the scene, looks at all the other doggies. He likes being held floating in the water. He's such a sweetheart when I come down sort of from the afternoon working and he's downstairs. He runs off to grab a toy and bring it to me. It's like, Mum, here's a present. I'm so excited to see you. It's very sweet. He will come and sort of sit outside my working room door around 4 o'clock because that's when he likes to go for a little afternoon walk for me. I take a little break from the day's working and then come back and do some more work after. That's a good way just to refresh. Oh, that's worked out really well. It's feeling really, it's sort of got a stability to it. This still stretches around it, which is great. So I think I'll tie that off there. Let me just make sure put a few more stitches in where the elastic is. I think, I have covered this area. So I'll just hide the thread up in here because we know we're going to be adding stitching over this area, so it doesn't matter that I put a knot in here. Okay, so that's pretty good. And I might need to turn my lights on now because it is definitely getting a little bit darker. Okay, now do I want to use, I think I will use the blue. Oh, I think that will work. I was just thinking, have I forgotten anything at this point? No, I think we're going okay. So again, I can just pop out. Leave my knot in the middle. Does this need to go a particular way up? Maybe like that. Oh, in fact, that's my top, isn't it? Yes. Yes. And of course, I'm getting my thread all tied up on the table and tied around here. Okay, Christine, we can do this. What am I doing? Okay, the top is that way. The thread is here. We are going to put this, which way did I say? Maybe that way? Yes. Let's do that way. Okay. So in fact, I probably actually just want to have the stitches sort of coming. Probably only need them. Actually, I'm just going to restart those, I think, because I think I want to do them just a smidge lower. Just tying another knot on my thread. That's going to be the top that I wanted to, can't even remember which way I wanted it now to go. That's all right. I don't think it matters too much. And then I can pop through from, what I'll do is I'll pop through from here. Okay, so I think I just want to be catching this lower area rather than too high up. And then probably just catching down into here. Let's see how we go as we go. Am I on camera? Yes. You could always put another bit of felt on the bottom of the jar, which would give you a bit more to stitch into, but we haven't done that, so I'm just going to go ahead, but that's just an option for you if you want it. And maybe, is this where I should actually do, maybe I should be doing a ladder stitch. Maybe we can start doing that for the rest of it. So I'm going to do where you do a ladder stitch. So running inside the seam of both bits, well, not the seam in this case, but the inside of the fabric. And it just gives you a bit more of an invisible stitch. Yeah, I think that's actually better. So I'm going to, sorry, we're going to go back. I know it's a bit tedious, but I'd rather do it right, given this will actually be the visible bits. I just think it will end up being a bit better. And I can get the stitches to be a bit lower down as well. And that way not having the felt there won't be a problem. As I say, it doesn't really matter which way up this goes. Maybe that's better actually. I think that's meant to be the top. So yeah, with a ladder stitch, you're just popping directly across from where your thread is on the other side, and then putting a stitch in where the thread runs inside of your fabric. And we can always go around a couple of times if we need to, if we think it needs that securing. But yeah, it definitely makes the stitches a lot less visible and means I can put them right at the base of the lid, the jar lid that I've used. Hopefully you can see that. I can take that off now that I've positioned. So I'm going to come directly across from where my thread is on the other side and just take my needle for a little distance under the fabric, and then come over to do the direct side and take my thread. So your thread's actually being secreted in the fabric, and all you're seeing is the little stitch that goes between the two bits of fabric, but that sort of is a pretty small little stitch, but that's why it's called ladder stitch, because it looks like the rungs on the ladder. I believe that's why it's called ladder stitch. Hopefully I didn't just make something up there. That is possible as well, but it makes sense to me that that's why it'd be called ladder stitch. So yeah, you could definitely do your own little slow stitching on the top of it, but I thought I've got these beautiful vintage embroideries. I've got so many of them. This is the year for diving into the stash and turning them into something and honouring the people that made them, particularly the ones that have got stained up that aren't going to ever be used for their original sort of a display purpose. And I don't really put out doilies around the house. It'd be nice if I did, but they're here to stitch in, giving new life to old arts and crafts. Yeah, I just realised what I've done. I did actually end up, it's the correct way. I was looking at it going, oh, is that going to be showing? No, it's going to No, it is actually going to be, that's going to be the side that I have. So I have actually ended up doing it the way that I thought I wasn't, but I quite like the design on this side, so that is a-okay. How funny, Christine. You confused yourself, you turned yourself upside down. But it's actually probably better because this is the softer sort of side to it, so it's probably nicer to have that against my skin. Okay. So that's probably enough, and you can give your little ladder stitches a gentle tighten. You don't want them to pop open or anything, but that's pretty good, I reckon. If I was at all thinking that it's not strong enough, I could always do a second round, but I'm not going to make you watch through that, so I'll tie it off for now, and I can always come back. It's not like I won't be able to do that. And as I say, you could always use a piece of braid or ribbon if you wanted to put another decorative piece around there. That's just another idea for you, but I'm pretty happy with how this looks. It really does look like a little macaroon to me, a little French, or macaron. Macaroon. We were talking about them on Annie's live the other day, macaroons. Okay, so I've tied it off, and then what I'll do is I'll secrete the end in by putting my needle in and poking it out, and then pulling my thread so that it is right up to the end, snipping it off, and then pulling my needle through so the end ends up in the piece. Okay, so that is pretty good, I think. Now all I need to do is to stitch it so that it fits on my wrist but can still pull off. So I think we only need that much of it, and then yeah, it depends whether I want it really tight, or probably need to have a bit of overlap on it, I think. Somewhere like that would work, I think, which is a bit like that. So let's just put our little clippity clip on. But that looks really sweet, even the sweet little bit on the back. Maybe I'll use my cream thread for this, and we'll get it done in the next 3 minutes, and it will be a project from go to woe in less than an hour, including all my little missteps and misadventures. And all my blah blah blah, blaring at the start, so probably a lot less time for you. But it's not about the time anyway, is it? It's just about the enjoyment. So what do I want to do? Do I want to or do I just, is this going to fray? I don't think it is actually going to fray, so maybe I don't need to worry as much about that. Maybe I don't even need quite as much of a overlap. I'll just get it stitched enough that I can model it for you, and then if I want to do some further trimming down, I will do that off camera. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to have it, isn't it? With the cuff bit to the outside, comes over my wrist perfectly. Actually matches with my little top today. Yeah, I am very happy with that, and obviously this is still attached to my thread, but yeah, it works a treat to just be able to, and I know I'm not going to stab my wrist because it's got, worst case scenario, the pin gets, or the needle gets totally bit blunted, but it doesn't actually tend to go all the way down to the base. It's got enough traction in a way to do that. So there you go.
that is a great little under an hour project. If you don't have that, you could always make a little cuff with a button on it, or have a button and just a little bit of thread that you tie around, or a little loop with a bit of elastic. So there's a few different options for how you do that. But yeah, really pleased with that. I hope you enjoy that too. Let me know if you're going to give it a go. Thanks everyone.